It's my pleasure to welcome everyone here today for today's webinar. A big thank you for tuning in, especially this close to Christmas. We know how busy people are. Um, we are encouraging questions, and we will be fielding questions. So if you have a question, use the question box on the on your console, and we will definitely get to them when this is finished. One other housekeeping item is that if you're dialing in on your phone, please mute your microphone. The last time we had some challenges where we could hear some people, even though they were dialing in on their regular phone, they had their microphone on their computer and we could hear some background noise. If you could turn that off, that would be great. A little bit about our speaker today. Min Basadur began developing his insights about creative thinking and problem solving while at Procter & Gamble more than 30 years ago. While at P&G, Min received 3 U.S. patents and created a corporate-wide internal consulting practice. And following up his award-winning doctoral research at the University of Cincinnati, Min became a professor of management in the Michael G. DeGroote School of Business at McMaster University. He continues to teach an executive education program for Aalto University and the innovative and creative problem-solving module at the Conference Board of Canada's Directors College. Min's first book, The Power of Innovation, became an instant CEO need to read. He founded Basadur Applied Creativity in 1981 and has since traveled the world applying and teaching complexity thinking to many of the world's Fortune 500 companies. Now I'm going to turn it over to Min, where he's going to share some great stories and explain how generating really great ideas starts with a solid understanding of your customer's biggest challenges. Over to you, Min.
Okay, thanks, Bob. And I'm going to sidle over and start working on one slide after another. And I'm hoping that you can all see the one that's up front, which got a picture of me. And then I'm going to move to the second slide, which has the goals. By the way, really appreciate everybody tuning in. And I think we've got two kinds of people, those who've been following up until now, and maybe some new ones, brand new people. So some of today will be a little bit of a harken back to last time, pick it up, and then move forward from where we're going. One of the big things is, we really believe that innovation starts with problems of the customer, future customers, current customers, problem finding being absolutely critical. We're going to be, last time we worked on challenge mapping, and today we're going to shift into customer challenge mapping. It's something we've innovated more recently. And then once you've got your problem figured out as to what you're trying to do, generating ideas to really deliver, and also realizing that the creative process, innovation process, depends a huge amount on people and people being able to think together, not get in the way of each other, and work real hard to collaborate. And that's where we talk about the killer phrases. Then we're going to share with you an entire ideation session for someone who would want such a thing. And different people have different names for things like ideation, creativity. This one's going to be ideation, where we solve an entire episode. Okay, from last time, why did good new products and services fail? Lots of answers, but we believe a big one is they don't ask, are we working on the right things? We tend to be working to be busy, but are we working on the right things? The most important strategic things, and in product development, are we solving our customers' problems, or are we just trying to push our wares out onto people? Now, remember, the innovation process that we've had great success with and understand and is research-based has got 4 stages: generation, conceptualization, optimization, and implementing. And remember that all of us will have a favorite blend of those 4 styles as we operate. And these are divided into 8 steps. Where generating is discovering problems and fact-finding early in the game about the customer, and then moving on to defining the problem and getting ideas. And we're going to be spending time on 3 and 4 today, starting with 3, but hearkening back to take a run at this, you got to be doing 1 and 2 as well. Now, why is there's something important here? Einstein once said, and we really fervently believe this, You gotta solve a problem to save the world. 55 minutes defining. You'll only need 5 minutes. The solution would be almost self-evident. And this is so hard for an awful lot of people because of this. In our research, this is over about almost 22,000 people and climbing, where we look at what people tend to favor in terms of that 8-step process. And you can see we are really swung over to the right, to the left-hand side, where we have an awful lot of us who are implementation and optimization oriented. And that's great if unless you're in the innovation kind of field of play, where the right-hand side, especially generation and problem definition, are absolutely critical. So we're working uphill a little bit and learning the kinds of skills and thinking skills that will be needed in order to swing new products and new services. Last time we talked about three kinds of questions: the fact finding, where if I ask a question that starts with who, what, where, when, why, I will expect the fact to come back. How many people live in New York City? Somebody will say the fact is about 12 million or so. So I got a fact. Decision finding is should I buy the Toyota or should I buy the Chevrolet? And I'm looking for a decision. Idea finding questions are ones that draw ideas, and these start with how might we? So if I said, how might we get more people to be interested in innovation, you might pop up with 3 or 4 solutions in answer to that. So if I say, how might we, then what I'm expecting to get back are solutions or ideas. We call ideas solutions or vice versa. Now, why do we ask, how might we? Let's phone in. That's something that has been a mainstay for many, many, many years, and it implies a culture, and it's a great idea finding question. One is turning negatives into positives. Somebody says we don't do it that way here. The question becomes, well, how might we find a way to do it this way here? Or how might we find a way to make it palatable here? Also, when you got facts, and today we're inundated with facts, big data. There are all kinds of surveys that we do about this and about that and about our customers. How do we turn those into ideas? Well, we got to go through the step of challenges. So you remember last time we did the hurricane situation. How might we get the people to the shelters in time? How might we get the message to a people in time? So instead of just saying a lot of people don't get the message, we say, aha, how might we get the message to them in time? At the bottom, how might we get reelected? Now, the other tool is why would stopping that we covered last time. Why do we use the why would stopping analysis? Well, that's so we can be sure we are solving the right problem, or maybe we could say the best problem. There are so many different ways to define a problem, but sometimes we waste time on ones that are not well stated. Innovative people, this is what happens a lot. People jump fast. We tend to think of solutions, not in terms of problems. Your neighbor comes to your door and knocks on the door and says, I got a problem. And bingo, we jump out with several solutions before we even know what he's talking about. But this is going from 1 to 8. Got a problem. It's a fuzzy situation. Boom, we run over to 8, 5 or 6 times in a row without being in a hurry, without really understanding what the problem is, which is what we figure out by step 3. And right now, I need to tell Bob that I'm having a little difficulty moving ahead, and not sure exactly 100% why. The screen is kind of stuck here, and I'll keep on talking as Bob tries to figure out where we go from here. And we're showing the why with stopping analysis for those of you to review. When we ask the question why, we broaden the problem so there are more options. It's not so specific. But if we want to narrow it, and instead of saying how might we solve world hunger, and narrow it to something we can use, then we say what's stopping us. We answer in a simple sentence, simple, and then we get a new how might. Okay, now remember the Irish Spring story. I'll do it again. It's the best way to illustrate what we're talking about. This was a product that came out on the market by Colgate, our competitor, many years ago, and we were taken aback And we sent a bunch of people out. What the product was like was had green stripes, which was critical. And the idea was with these green stripes, we would get people feeling more refreshed, like being in an Irish meadow. And this took off like a rocket, and P&G got very concerned. The team began to work, and I got a call. They worked for about 6 months on how might we make a better green stripe bar. They were going to attack head on. And I got a call from the leader, and we had to come up with. He said, all we do is come up with these. We can't beat Irish Spring. We could just tie it in a consumer blind test. So we had a creative session. In that creative session, we said, why might we want to make a better green stripe bar? And one answer was we could regain market share. How might we regain market share? By doing it again, we came out with how might we make a more refreshing bar. This was a major aha, and the group got very excited because the second one, how might we make a more refreshing bar, was so far out of the box, it opened up everything for them. And so you recall that story, and we wasted so much time without having the session. In the afternoon, we generated about 300 ideas how we could do that, and we ended up with a brand new bar, which was basically I'm on the beach, I'm feeling refreshed, I'm at the coast, and it finally beat Irish Spring in a blind test. And that was, it took 2 hours to solve that problem, it took about 6 months to define it well. Now, Harvard Business Review, we all know about product launches that fail. We talk about them, and here are six. So the one I want to zero in, or five, is the fifth one. Not being able to support fast moving. Sometimes we promise stuff we can't deliver. Number three, yeah, we're not sure that it really will sway buyers. But number five is a key one. Is sometimes there really isn't a market for it. It's called great product, no market. And this is key. We get so much eager to push our stuff out that often we don't do the other thing, which is, hey, what's the problem we're trying to solve? A really good one that you probably all know about is the Segway. This is one where the people who made the product had as their target audience everybody who was driving a car. And essentially, they got ready to go it, but this was not the market. The market, this was not an alternative to a car. The market they really had was people who could use it for tour guides, warehouse companies, etc. So the product really did fail, largely because they had a product, but they didn't really specify the market it was going to serve. The question really becomes, what problem of the customer are we really trying to solve? I teach a course for people who want to take their ideas and become entrepreneurs. Often very, very smart people with often techies kind of things. But often they've got a great idea, a great solution, but I try to get them to move backwards into what problem are we trying to solve? And if you can't specify that market or the customer, it doesn't matter what you've got. So move back and figure that out. Now, here's my story about Randy. This is one of my so many things I learned. Had a situation where at Procter and Gamble, I was asked by Phil Meeker, one of my best colleagues, to come in and listen to his team that had been put together by Randy, and they've been floundering because they weren't really sure what they were doing exactly. And come on and listen. So I'm listening. They've been working for about 3 months. And somebody says in the meeting, I wonder what Randy really wants. Well, I look outside the door, and down the hall, there's Randy. His door is open. I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't somebody go down and ask him? Well, can't do that. It's been 3 months, and nobody wants to admit, Randy, we don't really know what you want. So here's the background. It turns out that earlier, Randy was at a lunch meeting with his boss, the general manager, and the general manager said, Randy, maybe we need a third liquid cleaner. We got two now. Mr. Cleaner Top Job. All of a sudden in the afternoon, there's a team working on a third liquid cleaner, and now they're floundering. Well, what happened was that later, Randy went to his boss and said, hey, boss, we've got a team working on that third liquid cleaner. Well, the boss said, Randy, I don't know why you're working on a third liquid cleaner. He doesn't remember. What he probably said was, we need to increase our sales. And all of a sudden, we got a team working on this. Well, what happened was, the team did not know how to go back to Randy and talk about it. And what we did was we did the why would stopping analysis, and we ended up with coming up with a better version of the challenge, which was how might we keep households clean, which the group really got into, and it was a really great challenge. And the problem was they were unable to redefine the problem and go back to Randy with the redefinition. They were able to only be stuck with that one thing he'd come up with. So we did work on that, and we did a very, very good job with. I can't go into the details, but and Randy was the boss is very pleased when you come in and say, you know what you asked us for. We've done a little more thinking about it, and maybe here's some alternatives. Well, that's what we need to be able to do is to redefine things that are given to us, get in a dialogue with people we're working with, and not just run and jump with whatever comes to us. Now, this is another example. What happens when you don't know what to do next and you know it? This is an example in a major company that was very, very successful, made parts for all kinds of parts for uh, NASA and for airplanes. And this is right after 9/11, 1 month after. The stock has dropped from 81 to 25 to 15. And the head of the company at the round table, 7 top people in October says, I don't know what to do next. Well, that was enough to ignite the creative process because the very first step in our process is problem finding. And what had been discovered or agreed, we're in step one. We don't know what to do next, but we've got a creative process we can use. After fact finding was done, it took about a day and a half to come up with this strategic challenge map. At the very top was how about we get the stock price up? This is a company that revered its progress with the price of the stock. Underneath this was on the right hand side, how about we get the stock market people in Wall Street excited about our future, which could lead to ideas like liquor them up or bribe them and stuff like that. On the left hand side, more regularly, let's say, how might we achieve top line earnings and earnings growth? Well, that led to the following map. How might we commercialize new products faster on the left-hand side? How might we change our business mix on the middle? Because they were missing a couple of major products. How might we take advantage of current stock markets to build mass? There were a lot of other companies who were down in price. Maybe we could buy them up. And how might we improve our cash flow? Their cash flow was only at 80%. If they could move it up to 100, that would get those Wall Street people really excited. Now, on one page, this became the strategic map for that company that's going to run their business for the next year or longer. Every one of those orange ones were the ones that were picked, and they formed teams of managers and professionals who attacked them. And one of the solutions was to give a lot of cash flow training to people. They jumped to 220% of net income, which gave them a whole bunch of money to buy an entire company, $1 billion company that helped them change their business mix. But you don't need McKinsey coming in and selling you $2 million for a strategy. You've got it right in your own hands if you've got the process to use it. Now, one more example of before we move into customer challenge mapping. This is a large oil company, and it was their small lubricants division. They were small, they had no vision, they had no mission, they had no strategic plan, and we worked with them for about a day and a half, and this is how it came out afterwards. At the top, how might we increase customer value? Afterwards, somebody said, let's make that our vision. What's stopping us? How might we consistently provide services, products, and attitudes that meet our customers' requirements? Somebody said, why don't we make that our mission? Below that, what's stopping us? These were called objectives. How might we provide world-class logistics expertise? This is something they're very good at. And how might we promote employee empowerment? Underneath this, how might we help our customers manage their waste? You see how we're getting more tactical? And over on the other side, how might we use modern business processes? Finally, at the bottom, these were programs, very specific. These are things that we are doing. So if you look at how might we implement ISO 9000 in the middle, why? Not because somebody thinks it's a good idea, they read it in the book, but because it would help us continuously improve our customer satisfaction. In the barcoding project, why are we doing that? That would help us promote employee empowerment. On this one page is the strategic plan for the company to run it for the next year or two, as long as they want to. Everything falls into place. And most people, often at the top, people at the top don't really know much about the bottom, and vice versa. You get them all together and they can create the strategic plan, and all the knowledge that they need is right in that room. Now, customer challenge mapping. This is where we don't say how might we, but how might the customer. And we use the same why would stopping analysis, only this time in terms of the customer. Here's an example of a company who's in the farming business. We've got quite a few of those, and they are expanding. And where they can expand is by thinking not so much about what they want, but what their customers want, especially if you're going to foreign countries. This map was drawn, given about a day or so, at the top. How might the customer maximize their profit? Now, if you work your way down, so look at over on the left-hand side. How might the customer maximize uptime? How might the customer get equipment repaired quickly? How might the customer get parts for vehicles that are broken down? Can you see all of these? These are all challenges that the customer would have. And if we can identify those real well, by the way, if we could ever get customers in together, which we can, you can do this even better. But often it's done by gathering information, large amounts of information, by sending out surveys and all that kind of stuff. And then you get people in and they start looking at that data, and then they start come up with, if you were a customer, what problems would you have? Now, if you got that nailed down, the next becomes pretty darn easy. If we get this nailed down, we can go after key problems that are up there and make our new products solve those. We converge on the priority challenges to feed idea finding. Okay, so all of this is the hinge between the facts and the ideas, our problem definition. How might the customer? And now we're here for ideas. Now, ideas are things that to us are solutions. So if you're in the new product business, it would be a new product idea after you've discovered the customer problem. And so what we do is we go after solving the customer's biggest challenges. And this is where we've got to be careful to use our skills. This whole thing is built on understanding and skills. And what we do is we diverge. If you see the lower right, we diverge first, where we generate solutions using our imagination. Afterwards, we call that divergent thinking. Afterwards, we converge and we evaluate our ideas. But we have to separate them too. If we don't separate them, we end up what's up here. And all of you will know about these killer phrases. They're used all over the place by intelligent people. We are so quick to jump on an idea and explain why it wouldn't work, because we haven't learned the skill of deferral of judgment. That's the most critical skill anyone could learn in their entire life, is to know whether we are generating an idea or a fact, or if we are evaluating that idea or a fact. And so you've got to watch these. It's so easy, and you've seen so many meetings that just go down the drain because people are doing this. Such a simple idea, and it's called diverge first, converge second. Now, when we're diverging, here are the rules. And these are so easy to follow if we really try hard. No evaluation or logic. That's later. Relax. Quantity is king. Later, we'll do quality, but it's better to have 150 ideas than to have 25 ideas. It is just so much better. And usually they get better and better and better as people build on each other. Don't interrupt. Radical wild ideas are very useful. They're not just for fun. Wild ideas, we say, are serious business. We can build on them. It's a lot easier to tame a crazy idea downwards than it is to take a boring idea and move upwards. Touch and feel. If you're trying to work on a new car, why don't you bring the car in, touch it, feel it, see what it's like, smell it. Forget things you don't like about ideas. Only build on the others. Remember, an idea is not perfect. An idea is just a fragment, and we have to build on it and build on it and build on it. And be careful of not bringing practicality and economy in it too quickly. Imperfect ideas are simply ideas to build on, and every idea is imperfect. And if you feel like saying something, don't be afraid. Say it. What's the worst that could happen? And if your team is a good one, they're going to be glad you said it. And often you've got to look at simple ideas. Kids are great, but we tend to look for home runs and little ideas. Build on little ideas. Don't overlook the obvious. Tools. There are hundreds of idea finding tools. And we found some of the simplest are absolutely adequate and great if we follow them well. Brainstorming is one of these. No criticism, quantity, go for quantity, and the wild ideas are great, but building, building, building. Unclumping is something where people often tend to make assumptions that, well, if we got this idea, it's a category and we shouldn't really go into it because they're all the same. They're all the same. And that is really not the case. A big idea, big category, could have many, many different ideas underneath, which will spawn other ideas if we'll just let them come out. And you get unexpected ones. I'll show you that in a moment. Also, one of the great things is to take a wild idea and build reality into it, bring it down. And you can start off by saying, what might be good about this crazy idea? List some things, and now you know what you're after. Now you go after those. Now, this unclumping tool works this way. Say I said that we had to think, we're going to practice generating ideas. Let's think of round things, as many as we can. Well, somebody comes up and writes down the word planets, but he doesn't write down all the planets because he says, you know what, they're really all the same. It'd be kind of cheating. So he thinks hard to go to the next and the next. Unclumping means says, hey, defer judgment, take that word, planet, boom, 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 what a bunch of them, and you hit, oh, wow, I hit down Saturn. Well, now I think of rings, and up I go to rings, and now I start generating a whole bunch of kinds of rings, jewelry, pearls, and now I'm out to the ocean with oysters, and then I'm down to the oysters, and I'm up to a cruise ship with portals. And that's the way it goes. It makes life so much easier if we let it. I'm going to go down one more here. Whoop, if it'll go. Yeah, it did go. And when you're doing ideas, they should be fun. I don't care how difficult the problem is or how morose it is. You got to have fun generating ideas. And what we'll do often is we'll give them a practice problem and challenge them to get 100 ideas, competition between the groups, and they've got to do wild ideas first. Why? To get lubricated, not drop back. Now, when it's time for converging, here are the guidelines. If you got 50 ideas or 100 ideas and you're going to choose some, we'll give people 3 or 4 converging dots and say pick 3 or 4 each. Number one, make sure what you pick is dead on the how might challenge. You could have strayed, you could have been here, you could have been there, but you are trying to work on that challenge you worked on so hard to identify. Pick ideas that are something new. Don't be worried it's something new and start giving very safe stuff that nobody can argue with. Concrete, you got to be able to see what this idea will look like, understand it, and it can't be like airy fairy. Easy to understand. It won't get done otherwise, and somebody could walk off the street, be able to read it and say, I got what that idea is. And finally, it's so concrete, so specific, an easy next step is obvious. Now, if you want to run an ideation session, here's an example. Somebody will call and say, we need some ideation. We got a lot of information. We don't know what to do next. All of those people are in, look how they're engaged. It's up on your seats, get in there, and you can't solve problems by sitting back and watching. Now, in the pre-consult is where we have exactly what are we trying to do, establishing ownership. Who owns this problem? Has to be at least one person in the client who says, this is my neck is on the line, and the more ownership, the better. We're not just a bunch of people thrown together. And then who should we invite to our session? What knowledge do we need? This session is going to depend on our knowledge of the issue. And we split the roles, very important, into process and content roles. The facilitator leads, and someone could be coaching on the side, or all of us could be coaching. But a facilitator cannot get into the content. He's objective. He knows the process inside out. He navigates and he encourages the participants to do well. The owner, we bring in people who are participants for their knowledge. But often we have more than one owner. We could have several owners, and often participants come in not owning, but as they get involved, they start being owners. They commit. So sometimes you bring in people that you'd like to join in. Now, the next thing we do is we have the Basadur Creative Problem Solving Profile to see what we've got. And this is a typical look where we have a lot of people on the left-hand side and some on the right. But why do we do this? One reason is so they'll understand the process. Also get ready for the fact that it might be difficult to do the right-hand side. But also, sometimes we split people into small teams, especially if we have a lot of people, say 30 people. Well, it's a lot easier to work with 10 trios than it is with 30 people. Well, we'll mix the trios by their profile to get them to be working together and taking into account all parts. Now, first thing we do is, are we sure we're all talking about the right target customer? Are we talking about users? Are we talking about retailers? Are we talking about the customers who sell? Let's be sure we don't use that term loosely. And we work real hard to make sure that we are talking about the right customers that are in our minds, and not assuming that's an easy word to understand. Next comes the fact finding. Many times, an organization will have gathered a huge amount of information, running surveys, gathering this. So got so much, it's called information overload, and we help them mine the data by having, before they come in, having the participants and the owner start picking what they think from the background material. What are some of the most important things that you saw? What you know, what you don't know. Bring it in, and we have them list them on walls. We put them up there, and so if we got 30 people, you've got about 60 items up there. Then we put them into trios and start working on reducing the number, discussing to understand, not judging until later, and ending up with a critical few. Maybe out of 60, maybe we end up 10 facts. We rewrite them so they're clear. We know exactly what those facts are, and we all understand. We don't go ahead until we have total consensus on what the key facts are. Now, we're going to move into customer challenges. How might the customer? And that we'll remember the poor old customer. Many years ago, we used to tell customers what to do. Right now, if we're smart, we listen to customers and we try to understand what they're trying to tell us. Now, we generate a huge number of challenges from those facts called how might the customer? And we are freewheeling. We lay them out. For example, how might the customer improve his cash flow? How might the customer save time? How might the customer simplify how he manages his business? These are challenges in step 3. Then we converge the same way on the most critical challenges, and we talk, we discuss to understand, and we don't move ahead until we have consensus on the critical challenges. Situation we're going to show you, we showed 6. Now look at the group here. We start challenge mapping. We do the why but stopping analysis. We move it up, we move it down, and we see the whole picture. You look how the group is up. There's no tables. They're fully engaged. You can't run a good session sitting around a U-shaped table or in a schoolroom fashion. People have got to be up and feeling and being intimate with the problem. Here's one, and this is where we picked 7, and I'll just run over them quickly. How might the customer have a satisfying relationship regardless of whether he's got a big customer or a small customer? Treat them all the same. How might the customer feel that we focus on his best interest, not ours? How might the customer improve his cash flow? How might the customer feel that we're investing in him and his business and success, lower left? How might the customer get high quality business plans? Okay, and how might we remove some of the restrictive rules that are all around our customer, free his life up a little bit? Okay, that was an actual map. And now we take those and start going into step 4, generating ideas. Here's an example. Idea finding 4, how might the customer feel that we're interested in him and his business and success? Remember now, we started off with wild ideas. Let's get going so we have a lot of fun with this and lubricate ourselves. And we generated more than 40 ideas on this challenge. And that didn't take much more than a half an hour to an hour. And then we converged. We picked 10 as the very best. And then we worked on getting that down to the 5 very, very best, wrote them in a simple, clear, easy to understand way that anybody could understand and the team could understand. Now, we did that for all the other ones. There were 6 other ones that were picked. And by the end of the day and a half, we had pruned that entire list down to the very best of the best. And they made plans to go out and try these ideas out on customers and see which ones would really pass the final test. Now, wrapping it all up, how do you do this? One of the best things is get the team to take the profile so you all understand where they like to be innovation process. The process is king. If we can use that process, we're going to be in great shape. And remember, a lot of people don't know the process. Get your customers involved. They know everything about everything. And often, if you can be good at digging out of them by asking why it was stopping, they will give you rich, rich data and do the best you can to get that data about the customer. Go down to the most key ones. Involve your customers in telling you which ones are really, really key. Often you could almost say to a customer and say, which ones would you actually buy if we solve that for you? And they'll tell you. And then be careful when you start generating ideas. We don't revert to the old fashioned, oh, this wouldn't work, that wouldn't work. We want people to be in there. This is serious business. We want to avoid killer phrases. We want to defer judgment. And finally, work with your customers, bring them in and say, here's a couple of ideas we got. What do you guys think of? And don't feel badly if they are negative. That's good stuff. They're telling you how to make it better. They'll be listening good. And often, the king of them all, you don't jump from an idea into action. And so those are kind of things that to kind of remember, and they're just so much common sense. Now, I'm going to ask Bob to step in and tell us about what are some next steps for you.
Thanks, Ben. That was great as always. A couple next steps, and we're going to get into some questions. As per usual in every webinar, love getting your emails, and we get quite a few. So send us an email, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Another thing that we're starting to do a little bit more of is using the webinar, GoToWebinar technology, and doing some webinar coaching sessions. So if you're ever interested, especially with people that are, in different countries and different parts of the world, it's a great way to we can run through something, maybe a client, maybe a project you're working on. Be happy to set something up and use the technology to do that. Our next workshop in the certification workshop, which we call level 1 and 2, is going to be set in January 13th to 15th, coming up in the Toronto area. It will be cold, but we're so busy in our workshop that there's not a lot of time to explore the outdoors. So we encourage you to come.
And if you want to take a short trip over to Niagara Falls, it's only about a half hour away.
And lastly, just a little bit on our next webinar, which is going to be February 17th at noon, same time. The art and science of optimization. We're moving into step 5, how evaluation selection starts with divergence. So stay tuned. We're already going to have some great ideas of what we're going to do with this one.
Yeah, we find that some of the greatest ideas we come up with come out during the converging stage, where people defer judgment and start kicking around ideas how to get around roadblocks.
So I'm going to get to a few questions here. We got one. Are there more structured techniques to diverging beyond brainstorming?
Yeah, and the answer is yes, thousands. And some people use. And by the way, we pick and choose things that we like ourselves. For example, analogies, and analogies and metaphors. People will use what from the world of animals best illustrates what we're trying to do here, and or what from the world of science best illustrates from here. And they use metaphors and to come up with them. The critical thing to remember is we really think the generation of the ideas is subordinate to the discovery of the customer challenge. And we've always done very, very well with just meat and potatoes, things like brainstorming, unclumping, building on the wildest ideas. So you can get a book probably easily get a book. Somebody might list. We call them a tool. Those would be several different tools you could use, and you can use. Let's pretend we're going to the movies. Let's pretend we're out on Jupiter. You can do many things to get people's imaginations going, and for us, the simplicity of those other techniques has been more than plenty. But the answer is yes.
Another question we have. So how do you go about getting a customer to take part in an ideation session? When with many companies, there's so many internal processes or roadblocks to get them involved.
Well, if you are a person who is like the navigator, you're the inside a company or outside a company, you're the one who will be the facilitator. You have to take charge and you have to set up the meeting. And the meeting starts way before the meeting, and that is you normally would get a call from somebody who would be your owner, your client, and this person would call and say, "I've got a problem." See that he's in step one. I got a problem. If he doesn't have a problem, they don't need you. I've got a problem, and I'd like you to help me. You then go immediately to a pre-consult, and you sit down with the owner and you go through the first three steps of our process: fuzzy situation, which is what he's in, fact finding, and problem definition. At the end of that, you should have good agreement between the two of you, an understanding of what problem he's trying to solve. What's the opportunity? And at that point, you say, can we go ahead? Are you ready to go ahead? And who should come to the meeting? Now, when you're talking about, now, if he's your customer, holy smokes, you got a customer already. But he says, yeah, I need something to develop a new product. And then you start saying, okay, well, who should come to the meeting? Who are people who've got the knowledge? And that would likely include customers who've got the knowledge. And so you start making a list of people who he's going to invite to the meeting because of their knowledge. And that's how it goes. And now, if he is the customer, of course, you've already got him there. I hope that answers the question, but you've got to sit down and do the pre-consultation, which is absolutely vital. You don't go in because you get a chance to really understand what the problem is, what we're trying to do, and you and your owner are a team. Now you're in there together, and now you're saying, who could we bring in to help?
And how do you? Another question is how do you really leverage the profile in your ideation sessions?
Oh, well, first of all, yeah, that's a good question. First of all, uh, well, there's two big things. One is fun, and it's very fun for people to find out something about themselves and find out that their way of solving problems is just as good as anybody else's way. Nobody's a genius when it comes to creativity, and we all need each other. Second of all, it helps you quickly introduce this crazy thing called a process. Most people in the world are not at all process oriented. They are content oriented. They're all over on the implementation side. So the idea that you could use a process to help you navigate your way through a complex thing like developing a new product or solving a problem, make it easy, that's a brand new idea for them. They're most used to thinking it's a bolt from the blue or whatever. So now they understand there is a process. It gives you, the navigator, carte blanche to lead them through the process. So if they're jumping from here to there and everywhere, it's perfect to say, like, are we jumping from 1 to 8 here or 1 to 7? Oh yeah, I guess we are. And you use a big visual of our process, working on where are we in the process. So that is, and then the group that becomes a language of innovation. They can ask each other, wait a second now, are we optimizing? Or I thought we were still fact finding. Oh yeah, we can talk about that. And we have we have one of our colleagues who is a great facilitator. And the idea is, just because you are let's say, a quadrant two, a conceptualizer, it doesn't mean that you can't do quadrant four and vice versa. These are temporary states and they can be moved. So our guy, Sam, says, let's all chant, states not traits, states not traits, states not traits, knowing that people will flow through and there is a process to go through.
Here's another great question, and this is one that can the owner of the problem participate in workshops?
Oh, totally. The owner is your key person. The owner knows more about this problem than anybody else. If you don't have an owner, don't do the session. It all revolves around the owner. All we're trying to do is help him. He knows everything, and a good owner is one who is going to be very forthcoming. He'll not only answer questions, he'll give more information that nobody even asked for. So the owner is critical. The only thing the owner can't do, he can't lead the session. You cannot lead the session, and we have to separate those two. But by George, I can't imagine what thing you're going to have if you don't. One of the biggest problems when we ask people, how many people have been in a room where, and in a meeting, which was total waste of time, everybody's hands go up. And then we start asking them why. What are some of the things that go wrong? And one of them is no accountability. Nobody in that group was accountable. And so, why in the world would you have a meeting without somebody totally accountable? The only reason for having a meeting is to solve a problem. That is verbatim. Solve a problem, get from A to B. There isn't any other reason for wasting people's time. And you've got to have an owner in there who's willing to do something. And the whole subject of the meeting becomes we're going to help our owner get into action, go into step 8 somehow, and leave with a plan.
And here's a great question. I think it'll be a topic of a future webinar. And it has to do around us focusing so much on products and services when there are bigger challenges on the level of organizational like processes, business models, organizational design. You want to talk a little bit about that, but we do talk about culture change inside
Oh,
organizations, but to that question specifically, because I think it is a whole nother webinar unto itself.
a problem is all of those things. Innovation is not focused on IT or products or services. Any problem you've got, we can't do this, we can't do that. Our business model is not working. Whatever it is, you need to have people who want to make change. This is a great change making process that we have. We really dislike the term managing change. Managing change means we are going to make a change whether they like it or not, and we're going to shove it down their throats. Adaptability is the name of the game. And adaptability means we're driving change. Some of you remember the earlier seminars, adaptability, any good organization is deliberately, proactively driving change. They're looking for ways to make things better, internally, externally. And one of the biggest things is called problem finding. Problem finding doesn't mean a new product or a new service, means something I can't do. And you've got internal customers, you've got external customers, and you want to get people who are not sweeping problems under the rug, they're bringing them up. And when you're doing process redesign, you don't want to be strictly going over to optimization and implementation, which is what Six Sigma and Lean are. That's fine. But if you keep on working on that, you're going to be getting incremental changes. You want to bring innovation in where you could do the right hand side as well, and you start looking at breakthrough challenges in processes and business models. So this is not at all supposed to be focused on products and services.
Well, that's great. I think that's kind of all the questions we have now. And I just want to say on behalf of Min and myself, want to wish you and your family this a very safe and happy holiday season and all the best in the new year. And we really look forward to seeing everybody in February in 2015. And hope we do hear from a few of you before then. But until then, all the best. And thank you again for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you, talking to you again in February. Have a great day.